Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Mavs Moneyball After Dark. This is Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. You're joining us following a Thursday night victory from the Dallas Mavericks over the New Orleans Pelicans at home, 111-106. Josh, how you doing?
I'm actually kind of mad. Excuse me. I'm kind of shocked at how upset that game made me. Because it's the middle of February and me and you and the rest of the staff are just trying to crawl to the All-Star break so that we can not only just kind of just get some time away, but we're all got winter sickness and allergies and we're staying up late. We're working on the site and we're all just kind of cranky and just kind of blech about everything. And so usually that means we usually don't have the energy for takes at this time of year. Usually it's just oh, well, the Mavericks played a game. That happened. On to the next one.
It's a slog to get to All-Star break.
But that game made me mad. I'm pretty mad.
I'm fascinated because I'll be honest. So everybody that heard me on the podcast Monday night, I normally record more. I've been teasing our friend Dalton, who, he kind of runs Dallas basketball with him and two other people. He does a ton of work over there. And so he's been recording more regular podcasts because he loves trade season. I hate it. I hate it. It is to me, it is it brings out the worst part of basketball fandom. And that's just my take. I was sick Monday night and then woke up Tuesday a mess. And so I didn't record anything for 2 days. And I was kind of looking forward to rolling in here when the Mavericks were up by 30 points in the second quarter. And it was just really something because, Luka came to work and was just destroying the Pelicans. And you didn't see Luka get hurt. He basically rose up. Yeah. I don't know what he was thinking, to be clear. He had a floater opportunity in the middle of the lane, but he jumped off 2 feet and proceeded to get blocked basically and landed real hard on his, he's a big guy, 240 to 260 in that range. Landed on what I thought was his ass, actually, but it seemed that most of the weight actually went down on the ankle that's already been bothering him. And then he got pulled out a few minutes later after he tried to come back in and kind of play through it because Luka just he plays through most stuff. And he took himself out of the game. Granted, they're up by 30, so he could have, for all we knew, he could have played through it. He later gets ruled out with a heel contusion, which I don't know if that is bad or good. Heel contusion sounds uncomfortable. And then the Mavericks just slowly got their asses kicked. And I don't even know what to be frustrated with because I had a couple people message me that really were can you spend some time talking about Josh Green? So I think before we beat the shit out of everyone else, we do talk about Josh Green a little bit because he's kind of why they won the game. He made some plays down the stretch that helped hold off the Pelicans.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I wanted to lead the podcast with, because I thought that we would be talking about a 25-point Mavericks win and we'd be in a good mood and we'd be like, hey, the Mavericks took care of business for once and look at what this guy did, like, and this guy stood out, other than Luka doing what he does. Um, but yeah, so I guess we're going to talk about it now because of, it's pretty much the only good thing that happened besides Luka. The fourth quarter, like, he was good all game. Like, through the first three quarters, he was like normal Josh Green in terms of like what he's been doing all season, getting out in transition, finishing at the rim, good defense, like good support player kind of stuff. I think he had either I think he had 8 or 10 points. I think he had 8 points at the end of the third quarter. So he finished with 15. So he scored, 7 points in the fourth quarter, I believe. I hope I'm not wrong on that, but the fourth quarter, like, he was their offense. Like,
Yeah. Spencer Dinwiddie turned into a pumpkin.
Yeah, I mean, he bailed the team out. Like, the Mavericks didn't run any. I mean, I'm trying not to get ahead of myself with what I got mad about, but like, he did things that weren't just like, support role stuff. He was like doing. I mean, I don't want to get too ahead. I'm like too hyperbolic here, but he was doing like number one option stuff. Like, he was doing stuff where like he got the ball and no one else was doing anything, and he kind of took it upon himself to make a play, whether it was a drive at the rim. He made a 3-pointer that felt huge at the time, and even though the Pelicans did make a run after that, I mean, he took a 3-pointer from the wing when they were up 9 with like 3 minutes left, and the Pelicans on a run, and it's like, you go up 12, you get that breathing room back to double digits. Obviously, Pelicans still came back, but like, imagine if he missed that and the Pelicans have the ball down 9 with oh, excuse me, frog in my throat. Down with 3 minutes left, that would have sucked. So he
scored 7 right of the Mavericks 16, and he scored those 7 points in the final 6-ish minutes.
Yeah, and I think only maybe one of those buckets, that 3-pointer, was assisted, that's like the crazy part. Like, he was like doing things unto himself, which is usually not what Josh Green does, which was really impressive. Really impressive.
I'm curious with this. So there's a flip side to Josh Green becoming a more regular contributor to what the Mavericks do. And it's teams will eventually have to scout him better, because what I'm seeing right now is he is taking advantage of teams that simply don't know what the hell he's going to do. Some of the drives he's making, some of the finishes he's making, where he's kind of like dipsy-do, like up and under stuff in the air, that doesn't happen. And he's been doing it all season. And I just wonder if there's not enough tape, if teams don't pay enough attention to him, because it's like, number one, he's like the only Mavericks player who can take off from outside of 2 feet and like do something with the ball in the air. So that plays like a small part in it, but it's nice to see the decisiveness. The 3-pointer was probably my favorite, because he does a lot of auto rotating the ball when he gets it on passes. He wants to make the right read and do it quickly. And sometimes with the ball rotation, it just like swings around the outside, swing. Somebody else gets the shot. I like it when he shoots, because if he continues to take shots, even if his percentages go down, which they're, that happens when you shoot enough shots, eventually teams have to guard you, which opens up stuff for everybody else. And that's where, a lot of fans want to see him start, just because Tim Hardaway has been so awful. And I think there's a lot of credibility to that claim. I doubt Kidd will actually do it. That's a different story. But I like a lot, Josh Green is definitively why they held on in this game. And that, needs to be said. Anybody that didn't watch, you'll look at his box score, you'll see 30 minutes, you'll see 15 points, and you'll see 4 rebounds. It's good. It's a solid contribution. I mean, he's one of 4 Mavericks players who scored in double figures. Everybody knows how I feel about that. I had somebody tell me, it's like, oh, well, the Mavericks, no, it was my friend Matt Moore. It's like, I think you complain about this too much because, they play at such a deflated pace. You're not going to, and I do understand why, but it's just, I don't know. I need more Mavericks I need more balanced scoring, please. Anyway, Yeah, I do think it's right to lead with some, because obviously they won the game. So you want to lead with like why they won the game. Like Luka Doncic was all world for 23 minutes. He scored 31 points, grabbed 8 rebounds, and had 4 assists along with 2 steals. Like just God mode stuff.
Yep. He would have had 50 if he didn't leave the game.
That's clearly why he was playing. Like he wants to get his point. Like there's an element going on now where he wants to be the scoring leader.
Yeah, I could believe that. Also, he was at 23 minutes. It was the third quarter. So even if, I mean, who knows if he would have, how it would have gone. I mean, obviously he would have gotten back into the game more because the Mavericks completely gacked it. But yeah, he was as good as he's been in those 23 minutes. Like he was really, really good. The only thing that was off was he just couldn't make any threes. But I think he was 8 of 9 in the paint. Which again, he was like 12 of 13 against the Pistons in the paint. So he's on quite the roll right now.
Yeah. So we don't know what's going to happen with Luka.
Yep.
They embark on a 5-game road trip, which we will talk about shortly. So we don't know what happens there. It's disappointing. Luka he plays so well in the month of February, kind of shockingly well, even by his standards. And so it's very frustrating to see him go out with an injury, but it really makes you wonder. The Mavericks were up by like 27 when he went out, I think. So it's might be a little bit preventative. Then the rest of what happened, I don't have a good explainer for it. I mean, just to toss out some stats that blow my mind that I did not recognize in the game. Spencer Dinwiddie and Tim Hardaway were 7 of 37.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes. They were horrible. They were that fourth quarter.
They finished with negative plus minuses. That's amazing.
They got outscored 49-27 when Luka went out. That fourth quarter was embarrassing and
for
shameful.
Who all? Because I need a list.
Everyone but Josh Green, including the coaches. They're shameful and embarrassing. Especially Tim and Spencer. I mean, it was literally like, it's one thing to miss shots, and I can excuse that to some degree. Like we'd still be mad that they missed shots, but like, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you know, they missed shots. What are you going to do? The process was so embarrassingly awful. I couldn't believe what I was watching because we just saw them play basically 2 games without Luka, the Phoenix game and the Utah game, and they didn't look this incompetent in either of those games.
I mean, it was Spencer, it's Spencer related though, isn't it?
Because it is, yeah.
He's the ball handler, and when he's not feeling it, and he should like to be clear, I'm very critical of Spencer regularly, mainly because I think that he gets a lot of credit for being awesome beside Luka, but then doesn't really get a lot of grief when he's bad. And this was a game where he was simply awful and he was forcing stuff.
Yeah.
And he's got to learn to distribute more. You cannot miss this many shots. You cannot, like, some of the shots he took were atrocious.
That's the thing. I could not believe, I mean, walking the ball up. I mean, Kirk, they were running possessions where he wasn't even getting a ball screen. Nope. I mean, literally just walking the ball up, dribbling it out, and taking
the Pelicans announcers were making fun of it.
Yeah, Twitter was making fun. Everyone was watching the fourth quarter and be like, what the hell is going on with the Mavericks right now? It was unbelievable. Like, we get kind of mad when the Mavericks still try to run that bum hunt offense, even when Luka's not on the floor. And they did a little bit of that in the fourth quarter. But they didn't even do that at times. Like, no. Seriously, like there were possessions where Spencer was the only person who touched the ball, and there was literally zero movement. No screen set, no off-ball movement, just Spencer walking the ball up, dribbling it down to about 10 to 8 seconds, and then taking a step-back jumper. He took one where he didn't, you know, again, no screen, no nothing. I mean, like, he took like a step-back 2, like a 20-footer, like almost with his foot, you know, almost with his back heel touching the 3-point line, which is literally like the worst shot you can take in basketball. And I'm just like, what? Like, did all of y'all get lobotomies when Luka got hurt?
Well, like that's what
it was crazy.
It's.
This is advertiser content brought to you by Frito-Lay.
Hello, I'm Chip Murphy, here to get you ready for the big tournament. Tonight we break down who will be cutting. Cut! What are you two doing?
Sorry, Chip. Prez here got his feathers ruffled when I told him Ruffles has zero chance of winning the title.
And I was letting Dip know that she is not taking into account Ruffles' iconic ridges.
Guys, it's March. We have to start talking about the tournament.
We are. It is the 2023 Frito-Lay Snack It.
We're talking about big-time matchups between Cheetos, Smart Food, Lay's, Sun Chips, and more.
Just head to the Frito-Lay Snack Bracket and vote for your favorite chip, pretzel, or dip for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks.
This sounds great. Keep up the good work.
Just go to fritolaysnackit.sbnation.com. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends 4/3/2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnackit.sbnation.com.
Luka is that guy. They are not. They shouldn't be punished for not being those guys, but that's where everybody needs to come together at some point during the 27-point collapse.
Yes.
And say, hey, let's run. You know, I'm going to be honest. I've talked about this with like 10 different people. Our friend Iztok showed this quasi play the Mavericks have been running recently where you get Josh Green basically an on the move drive at the basket. The language that like the coach speak that goes into it, I have been losing my mind about because I'm just like, this looks like this looks like something that would happen in pickup. And I understand it's more complicated than that. But then again, basketball is also not that complicated. That's understanding that. So setting that with the table. Why didn't the Mavericks coaching staff get Josh going with anything more? The reality was Josh Green made the absolute most out of extremely limited opportunities. I mean, I could go pull up the play log. I had it open a second ago.
Like where were the Josh Green to dribble handoffs? Where were Josh Green setting screens, which he was really good at certain times? Like there was nothing. There was nothing.
I mean, I got to find this Spencer stuff because
Kirk,
Spencer getting blocked on a 3-pointer with a minute left is the kind of like, that's where you turn off the PlayStation where it's just like, okay, I'm done with this.
And Kirk, you made the point about how like these, Luka is Luka and these guys aren't Luka and we're seeing it. And I can get that to like for everyone but Spencer. Like Spencer was a starting point guard for the Brooklyn Nets and he was okay. He was like a pretty good point guard. Like Spencer has been on other teams besides the Mavericks and has been a pretty good player. Like this isn't the case of like these guys that come here like Tim or Finney Smith or Powell where you're like, oh, these guys are succeeding because of they're kind of in this Dallas ecosystem, which accentuates their strengths and minimizes it. Like Spencer was a good player before he came to Dallas in Brooklyn. Like he should know better than what he did in that fourth quarter. He's a better, like we can get onto him about a lot of different stuff, but like this wasn't the case of him like being exposed without Luka. Like we know he has enough individual skill to be better than that. And he had 12. What's so crazy, he had 12 free throw attempts in this game. Like, he was pretty good getting to the basket. So the stuff that he was doing, taking and settling for step-back jumper, like, that was – it was like – it looked like they were trying to throw the game. Like, they weren't doing anything.
The line was 5 points, and the Mavericks won by 5 points. 5 points. Like, the Mavericks are the worst team in the league against the spread. And I get messages all game long where it's just like, are they throwing this? I mean, let's be clear. There were a couple of real screwy things that happened in that game, both sides. Like this is once again another very poorly reffed game where like the Mavericks had to blow a challenge on a horrendous call. And it's just sometimes I wonder what these guys are watching. The refs made a clear makeup play later when Dorian Finney-Smith got called for a landing foul almost like, and they tried to assess him for a flagrant, but the guy had already landed when Dorian was within his space. Like just some truly awful stuff. And then there was the shot clock malfunction. Like let's just call it a malfunction to be pleasant. they screwed the Pelicans out of 3 seconds there at the end of the game. Now,
Yeah, that play where Ingram knocked the ball out of bounds with
the clock just kept going.
Yeah.
It's like it's on tape. One of the big NBA guys who shares all sorts of stuff. Who is it? Rob Perez, Worldwide Wob, basically shows the clip, and it just keeps going. Like that's the Mavs got lucky. I mean, they really got lucky, and some of the things they've done to screw and over the course of the NBA season, stuff writes itself. I'm not going to sit here and really complain about one. Like, I want the Mavericks to win. I don't really care that it benefited them. It's like when a screwy thing happens to the Mavericks at some point over the next 5 games, remember this stuff.
Yeah. That's and to be honest, that stuff is just like kind of like I'm just more like amazed at the incompetence, not like, oh man, the Mavs got screwed or the Mavs got bailed out. Like, because again, the team gave me plenty of ammo in that fourth quarter that I don't even need any of the ref crap to talk about. And then, we didn't even talk about Tim, who was 3 of 18, 2 of 12 from 3. One of his misses being that disastrous 3-pointer he took when they were up. I don't even remember what they were up, but he took a 3-pointer with like 18, 19 seconds left in the shot clock when there was like a minute left, and at that point your goal is to run clock. Just terrible stuff. I can't do the math in my head, but Kirk, these are his last 5 games from 3, including tonight. So tonight, 2 of 12. Monday against the Pistons, 1 of 6. Saturday against the Jazz, 1 of 7. Thursday against the Suns, 2 of 6. Tuesday against the Wizards, 1 of 7. He was 5 of 26 coming into this game. So he's 7 for his last 38 from 3. I don't know what's happened. Like we thought he kind of turned a corner when they kind of put him back into the starting lineup and he was playing with Luka, and we were like, okay, well maybe that's it. And maybe he turned a corner with coming back from his foot injury. Guys can usually start the season slow when they're coming back from an off-season surgery. But man, he is in a rough place right now. And considering the trade deadline's a week away, and we know that the Mavericks want to trade him, this literally could come at the worst time. Like, the Mavericks need everything they can get right now. They're about to play the hardest 7-game stretch of their season that's going to determine their season, and he's playing like dog crap. Now, maybe he can turn it around, but like, holy cow. Like, I couldn't believe what those two guys were doing. And it was really frustrating because like Dorian had a really nice, nice game, solid game. Dwight Powell had a pretty decent defensive game. Like the role players, like the guys the glue guys, Green, we already talked about, like they did their part. Dinwiddie and Hardaway, their jobs mainly are to score, keep the offense afloat between the two of them, especially when Luka's like, that's their responsibility. That they're the 2 highest paid players past Luka, I believe. So like that's embarrassing. Like they're veteran. Like I know that these guys aren't that, that this roster is not that good past Luka, and we talk about it all the time. Sure. But 49-27, that bad without Luka, like there's a point where like there's pride and you just need to have some shame. And there was, like I said, it was hideous. They got outscored 66-41 in the second half. Like, Kirk, do you know how hard it is? So do you remember what the largest lead in this game was?
30-something.
30-something?
I can go look. I mean, the NBA does that better than...
Okay, so when a team comes back from a 30-point deficit to make it, a 2-possession game in the final minute, Kirk, how does that usually happen in the modern NBA?
3 points,
right?
Yeah.
The Pelicans shot 5 of 21 from 3.
And they're a terrible 3-point shooting team.
And they still came back in this game. Like
you never get mad. This is funny.
I don't, but you're watching that fourth quarter, right? Or were you kind of tuned out?
I honestly, my dogs were being such unbelievable morons throughout the entire game. I kept having to go outside, and they're like trying to kill each other in the slush.
I think this 30 would have been a game.
31-point lead.
And they were 5 of 21 from 3, and they made it a game in the fourth. Like that's unbelievable. Like if a team, if a team goes 5 of 21 from three, like if a team goes 5 of 21 from three and you go 14 of 41, I know that's not a great possession, but if you make 9 more 3-pointers than your opponent and you have 9 less turnovers, the Pelicans had 17, the Mavericks had 8. It should be a blowout, and it was a blowout. And the only reason it wasn't a blowout was because those two dinguses had one of the worst fourth quarters I've ever seen in my life. And I just can't believe it. Like, just should have been a feel-good win going into the hardest part of the schedule. And like, I mean, the team I'm sure is fine, but like now like this fan base just can't get happy about anything. Because guess what? Luka might be hurt for the hardest part of the schedule.
Yeah, they're
going
gonna
to play.
They're 3 games above 500 with 3 games before the trade deadline. Those 3 games in order are against the Golden State Warriors, who play really well at home, despite being, I think, much further down the stats. Let me just go read this. The Warriors are a nice 19-6 at home. That is a crisp, that's nearly an 80% winning percentage. They are very good at home. Granted, they're 26-26 right now. Then they play the Utah Jazz on the road, who are 18-9 at home and who beat the Mavericks pretty good the other night. And then they play the Los Angeles Clippers on the road, who are a truly bizarre basketball team, but as it's a nationally televised game, pretty sure of this. Let me triple check this one. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say those Clippers. They're 7-3 in their last 10. And
well, yeah, so it's a nationally televised game. They don't basically play any back-to-backs the rest of the way. Whatever Steve Ballmer did to make that happen for the NBA is really remarkable. Which means the Mavericks stand a pretty good chance of seeing both Kawhi and Paul George. And right. Kawhi has taken a personal. Like, it's a quiet thing, but he has the last 2 games, he has personally annihilated the Mavericks. And Jason Kidd can't figure out, maybe we shouldn't send shitty double teams at Kawhi. Like they've gotten their asses beat the last 2 times, even with like Luka having good performances, it hasn't mattered. So the likelihood of them winning one of those 3 games, I would say, is pretty good because the Mavericks aren't that terrible. Like, they're not very good on the road overall.
But if Luka's not playing,
that obviously changes it because they have yet to win a game without Luka Doncic. I'm talking start to finish. Luka Doncic, I want to say they're 0-6. Right. So if Luka, and so it puts those things out there where the Mavericks are 9-16 on the road. It could be worse. I mean, they're the highest ranked team in the West. Like everybody above them in the West has won double-digit road games, but the Grizzlies are 11-16. So this is just a wonky year out West. We bring all this stuff up to say the Mavericks could very well go into the trade deadline at 500, and then you look at the schedule beyond the trade deadline, which goes how many more games? Maybe 3 more games. I knew this earlier because Jordan Brodess wrote a really good piece on it for us today. That's up at mavsmoneyball.com. Yeah, they play 4 more games after the trade deadline, and those are not any easier. 2 more, like a back-to-back against Sacramento, who is really good this year, and I would not be shocked if they run the Mavericks right off the floor in those 2 games. Then they play Minnesota, who's finding their stride, and then they play Denver, who's the best team in the Western Conference. And it's a defining point in the schedule. And we've known that for a while. And why we keep bringing it up is we would like to see some consistency of play from the Mavericks, and they just can't find it.
Right. Like these 2 home games, like it's really great that they got these 2 wins, but yeah. Like, do you feel like they could barely beat a crappy Pistons team? They almost gacked a 30-point lead. Like, none of these wins have felt particularly like these don't feel like confidence building wins. Both of these wins have felt like just hanging on by the seat of your pants and just thankful that you crossed the finish line.
That's right. This has not been updated as of tonight, but the Mavericks have played, this is clutch games. The Mavericks are 4th in the league in clutch games, number of games played. They have played 32. Now they've won 19 of those. Okay. 19 and lost 13. I'll tell you this, their point differential which is just over the long-term point differential is incredibly indicative of what your team really is. The Mavericks are by their point differential, they're I think after tonight it shouldn't have moved at all. I had this up just a second ago. I'm sorry.
They're 9th in the West in point differential.
So but they're basically dead even, almost like 500.
Yes,
I think is what it is. They are 0.5. So they're half a point.
Yeah.
So that's basically less than a point. In anything that bad, it's like you're essentially 500 basketball team. The likelihood is if they keep playing these close games, just do the way things pan out over the course of having enough data, the Mavericks are going to lose more of these clutch games. That just if they keep playing them this way, and it's going to, I just hope they don't lose the thread down. You said in our Slack today, they're not bad enough to be in the lottery. I tend to agree because Luka just raises your floor. But what they are bad enough to do is to finish like 9th. And, because it's anybody, and people are going to be pissed at us for saying this. I hope they're not. I don't necessarily, they're 5th in the West right now. But again, Minnesota's half a game back. The Suns and
they might be in 4th place by the time the night's
right.
over.
It's like if you do what the Pelicans have done, the Pelicans have gone on a 10-game slide. The Pelicans were 2nd in the West, and then they lost 10 in a row. You cannot go on a multi-game slide in the West, is what I'm getting at. Mm. And the Mavericks are, and to the Mavericks' credit, they haven't really done that. They stumbled quite a bit after that 7-game win streak, but more or less they've been playing kind of 500 basketball as of late. Evening that back out, because I want to say when they were when the Mavericks were really at the peak. Sorry, I'm really bad. I need to have 15 tabs open, and I just don't do it. When the Mavericks came off that win streak at the start of the year, they were 6 games above 500. Then they fell all the way back down to 1 game above 500 and stayed there for a while. Now they're back up to 3, and that's interesting to me. If they can keep their head above water, then maybe they'll be okay. It's just there's so many big games down the stretch. So many big games. They can't, the margin for error is really thin, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And it's just really they're just such an inconsistent team that you could tell me they go 6-1 in these next 7, and I'd be like, all right. And you could tell me they go 1-6 or 0-7. I'd be like, all right. This team is just, and maybe they go 4-3 or 3-4, kind of split the difference. All of the possibilities exist with this team because we've seen them beat really good teams and we've seen them lose to the worst, and everything in between. So, we watched this team beat Denver in Denver on the second night of a back-to-back, which is basically the hardest game you can play in the NBA over the course of the last 5 years. And they can do that, and then they could also, lose to the Magic or the Wizards, and it's so I don't know. We keep waiting for the team to kind of show itself, and the injuries make it a little harder. But maybe this is who they are. Maybe they're just this team that can barely scrap over 500. They're gonna give you some games you don't expect them to win, but they're also gonna give you some games you don't expect them to lose.
So here's an interesting thing that just got posted by friend of the show, Jeff Stotts. In Street Clothes, one of the best at reporting or basically explaining injuries, and because he has a database, he has a proprietary database, and he has all this injury information that nobody else in the world has. Regarding Luka Doncic, heel contusions can be more complex than they sound. A thick layer of skin as well as a pad of fatty tissue surrounds the heel bone. All of these structures can be contused. The average time lost for in-season heel contusions in the NBA is 1.8 games. The median is 1 game. Players to suffer the injury include Steve Nash, Jimmy Butler, Drew Holiday, and Kyle Kuzma. Knowing nothing, Luka will want to play. Mm-hmm. That's where I sit right now. Whether it affects his game is strikingly interesting because he is primarily a floor-bound player. Pain is something that he deals with all the time, and I think he sort of exaggerates it to effect, I suspect he plays.
You don't think he misses a game at all?
I don't think he misses a game at all. I think they pulled him because they were up 30 points.
Man, well,
I don't know. I mean, it feels weird being the non-pissy one.
I know.
Maybe,
If you had to sit him out one game, though, I would be like, man, like, are you gonna, even with Luka, are you gonna be like the Warriors?
I would rather bring him back and play the Jazz and have some hope of outscoring them. That's a good point.
Right. Like,
that's a good point.
Like, I don't know if I would feel too bad if they just were like, sit one game against the Warriors, because I don't know if they're gonna win that game even with Luka.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, if I was gonna say, if you had to do the recap for this game and you were watching every possession and taking your notes like you do when it's recap,
it would have been
time,
like 12. It would have been probably 1,500 words.
You would have been just as mad as me tonight. I guarantee it.
Oh, I mean, Ben Zadell, who did the recap for us, was like, they cannot lose this game. I am done with the recap in the third quarter, and it was like, sorry, bub, got to go rewrite.
Yeah. Again,
all right.
I could deal with missed shots. The process that was
bad. Yeah,
that was bad.
Well, this was fun. You go do your stats post, and I'm going to go do the live show, and then we will be on with our evening, and we will see everybody Saturday night. Have a good Friday, and for those of you who are like Josh and myself, and who have been at home with children, take a deep breath. At least it's the weekend, and you'll be with those children even more. It's been Kirk Anderson and Josh Bowe. Thanks for hanging out with us here at Mavs Moneyball. Have a great Friday.